Have you ever smiled while inside you were already worn out? You nodded, said, "It's fine," while your heart whispered it couldn't take anymore. That is the paradox of the kindest people. They give others gentleness, but carry silent fatigue in themselves. Carl Jung once said, "We become what we must to survive, but the price is losing who we truly are." And kindness, at times, is that very mask, formed in early years when a child learns that only by pleasing others can they be loved. But the mask has a cost. When you grow up believing kindness is the only path to acceptance, you begin to confuse your worth with your ability to give. You smile when you want to cry. You help even when you are drained. You say yes while 1,000 silent no's press against your chest. And each time, you abandon yourself a little more. The bitter truth is this: kindness has a dark side. It can help you survive, but it can also become the burden that makes you lose yourself. To the outside world, you look strong, always dependable, always ready. But only you know the nights of collapse, the mornings you wake with a heavy question: who takes care of me? This video is not here to reject kindness. It is an invitation to face its shadow, the place where kindness becomes self-erasure, where goodness turns into the way you sacrifice yourself just to exist. And if you stay until the end, you will understand that true kindness is not about keeping everyone happy. It is about learning to love without losing yourself. Have you ever found yourself exhausted yet still forcing a smile, just so you wouldn't let anyone down? You said, "I'm fine," while inside you were breaking. You were always the listener, but when it was your turn to need a shoulder, the room fell silent. And the most painful part is that, over time, you also learned to stay silent with yourself. This didn't begin today. It began long ago. Maybe when you were a child, you realized that when you behaved, when you were kind, when you pleased others, that was when you were loved. From then on, kindness became your ticket to survival. You learned to suppress your real feelings because your emotions seemed less important than keeping others close. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted. But every mask eventually makes you forget the face beneath. You grow up and turn into the kind one who never tires. At work, you take on extra tasks because you're afraid to say no. In friendship, you're always the safe harbor for others' crises. But when you collapse, no one is there. In love, you give so much that you burn out, then realize there's nothing left for yourself. The kinder you are, the emptier you feel. And the paradox is, the world still thinks you're fine. Kindness, when it becomes a survival mechanism, can destroy you. You turn into a mirror reflecting everyone else's needs while your own presence grows invisible. You don't dare ask for more, fearing you'll be seen as selfish. You don't dare stop, fearing you'll be abandoned. But it is this boundless kindness that makes you abandon yourself. And here is the truth you need to hear. Kindness has a shadow. It can be an expression of love, but it can also be the trace of fear. When kindness grows out of fear, it ceases to be love. It becomes a slow form of self-destruction. If you stay until the end, you will discover what most people were never taught: how to distinguish the kind of kindness that nourishes from the kind that destroys. You will see why Jung believed the mask of kindness is one of the most dangerous shadows. And most importantly, you will learn how to keep your goodness without losing yourself. Carl Jung once said, "We do not become our true selves by wearing only what others expect, but by accepting even the parts we often avoid." And kindness, when born from fear, is one of the most common masks we wear. In Jung's language, it is the persona, the shell we create to survive in society. The persona helps you get accepted. It makes you feel like you belong. But the cost is that your real self, the shadow, gets pushed into the unconscious. A child who learns they are only loved when they please will slowly hide their anger, their needs, and their fear of being abandoned. And when grown, that child becomes the one who is kind to the point of exhaustion. But the shadow inside them remains, growing stronger in silence. And the shadow always finds a way back. When you always say yes, you begin to carry resentment. When you give and never receive, you begin to feel invisible. When you swallow your tears to smile, you feel the emptiness spreading inside. This is compassion fatigue, the hidden exhaustion many empaths and kind souls endure but rarely name. The unconscious works in subtle loops. You want to be loved, but the more you give, the less seen you feel. So, you give even more, hoping this time will be enough. This is the cycle Jung called the compulsion to repeat, the drive to replay old scripts as if a new ending could appear, though the pain always strikes in the same place. Another factor is projection. When you wear the mask of endless kindness, others unconsciously cast roles onto you. The strong one, the dependable one, the one who needs nothing. And you, afraid of being abandoned, accept that role. But that image doesn't reflect you. It reflects their expectations. The longer you allow that projection, the more suffocated you feel. Jung taught that anything left in the dark will return as fate. And for those who erase themselves in the name of kindness, fate often arrives as burnout, isolation, or sudden eruptions when they can no longer hold it in. Kindness, without truth, turns into self-destruction, beautiful in the eyes of others, but unbearable on the inside. The problem is not that kindness is wrong. The problem is when kindness is built as a persona, while the shadow, your real needs, your real anger, remains buried. In that state, kindness is no longer love. It is defense. And a life built on defense can never feel like freedom. This is the link you must see. Kindness can be a gift, but it can also be a mask. Only when you dare to take the mask off and face the shadow does kindness return to what it truly is. Love in its right form. Love that begins with you. Kindness can begin as a beautiful seed, but when it grows on the soil of fear, it becomes a slow, self-eroding loop. This mechanism is so quiet you may not notice how long you've lived inside it. Jung warned, what is not faced in the dark will return and rule you as fate. For the chronically kind, that fate often looks like exhaustion. Let's decode the loop. The first step is childhood conditioning. As a child, you learn. When you are good, when you help, when you yield, you are praised, you are loved. When you are sad, angry, or demanding, you are ignored or scolded. The small, fragile brain draws a survival conclusion. I am loved when I am kind. That seed becomes the soil where the persona of kindness is planted. The second step is persona building. Growing up, you reinforce that mask. You become the strong one, the one who is always there, the one who never complains. People around you unconsciously benefit from that role. They begin to assume you need nothing. And in the fear of being abandoned, you accept that image as truth. The third step comes as compassion fatigue. You give until you are empty, but you do not stop. Inside you, the old fear whispers, if I stop giving, I will not be loved. So you keep going even when your body signals an alarm, even when your soul feels dry. The fourth step is the compulsion to repeat. Each time kindness leads to depletion, you swear you will change. Yet, in a new relationship or a new job, you fall again into the old role, the carrier, the pleaser. It is as if a script pulls you back, promising a different ending, but delivering the same wound. The peak of the loop is self-erasure. This is when you do more than ignore your needs. You forget you ever had any. You smile when you want to cry. You say, "I'm okay," when you are collapsing. You make your existence depend entirely on making others happy. In that moment, kindness ceases to be love. It becomes darkness, a way for you to vanish slowly from your own life. The unconscious mechanisms are subtle, and they stack. Projection plays its part. When you wear the kindness mask, others unconsciously project onto you the role of never needing, always dependable. You accept that projection because it spares you abandonment. But the image they hold is not you. It is their expectation. The longer you carry that projection, the more constricted you become. Another hidden engine is shame. Shame teaches you to hide needs as if needing were a moral failure. It tells you that asking is risky, that boundaries are selfish. So you swallow again and again, and shame tightens the loop. There is also a dynamic of reward and withdrawal. Kindness is often met with immediate social reward, praise, gratitude, being chosen. So the brain learns to repeat it. But when the reward is intermittent or conditional, you develop frantic giving to secure the next sign of approval. This intermittent reinforcement is powerful and cruel. Jung called the pattern compulsion to repeat because we are drawn back to what is familiar, even if it hurts. The turning point, the place where change is possible, lies in recognition. You must see that kindness is not always love. Sometimes it is a strategy. Sometimes it is armor. An armor that never comes off hardens into prison. Pause and imagine. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if you continue this way, what will you feel when you look in the mirror? You may be admired, you may be praised, yet inside you may be hollow. The radical truth Jung offers is blunt. Anything buried in darkness returns as fate. For the chronically kind, that fate is burnout, isolation, or the catastrophic breakdown when the self can no longer hold the strain. But there is also a more tender truth. Kindness begins to be genuine only when it is paired with truth. When you give but do not deny your limits. When you help but do not erase your needs. When you stop equating being loved with being always available. If you remain until the end of this video, you will touch that subtle distinction. The boundary that separates nourishing kindness from self-destructive kindness. And you will learn where to place the lever that breaks the loop. Imagine you are tending a vast garden. Every day you carry your watering can, moving from row to row, giving water to each flower, each fragile leaf. You carefully wipe the dust off petals. You block every small worm. You do everything to keep the garden blooming. Others walk in, they see the colors, they inhale the fragrance, and they praise you. So beautiful, you're so devoted. But there is one thing you do not do. You forget to water your own roots. Slowly, the base dries out. The leaves above stay green for a while, but then the whole plant begins to wither, even as you are still pouring water into every other branch. That is the dark side of kindness. You can pour water over everyone, but if you do not nourish yourself, you will dry up from the inside. Outsiders still see you smiling, still see your care, but only you know the sleepless nights, the mornings when your body feels empty. You are still green in their eyes, yet your roots have been crying for help all along. The metaphor of watering the plant but forgetting the roots mirrors exactly the cycle that many kind people fall into. At work, you take on extra tasks for colleagues, but you skip meals and you lose sleep. In friendship, you are always the one listening, yet when sadness hits you, you don't dare to disturb anyone. In love, you do everything to maintain warmth, but in truth, you are draining your own energy just to keep the bond alive. What you don't see is that every time you neglect the roots, you are cutting away a piece of your own life force. Carl Jung once said, "You cannot light up the world with a lamp that has gone out." Yet many kind souls believe that if they just keep giving, somehow they will be filled. In reality, the brighter that lamp shines for others, the faster it empties itself. And at some point, there is no flame left to share. In the unconscious, kindness is used as a strategy to be loved, but it makes you a stranger to yourself. You become skilled at keeping everyone else's garden alive while your own soil turns barren. And the tragedy is, people still applaud you, while inside, you feel increasingly invisible. This metaphor is a reminder. True kindness is not about watering everyone. It is about starting with your own roots. If your roots are strong, the whole garden can remain alive. If you never learn to care for yourself, kindness becomes nothing more than a beautiful mask that hides decay. The question here is not, are you kind enough? The question is, do you have the courage to water your own roots first instead of abandoning them? If you truly stop and look straight into the mirror, you may see this. How many times have you said, "It's okay," just to keep others comfortable while inside you were bleeding? How many times have you smiled to cover your tears because you feared that if they saw your exhaustion, they would leave? How many times have you helped someone, but when you needed them, you hesitated, afraid of being a burden? This is not only kindness. This is self-erasure. And the most dangerous part is that you have done it so often that you no longer realize you are fading away. You may be the person everyone relies on, but when the day comes that you collapse, no one truly sees it. Because in their eyes, you are the strong one. The one who's always fine. Even you start to believe that image so much that you no longer allow yourself to fall apart. Carl Jung once said, "The shadow we refuse will shape our destiny." When you deny your needs, your sadness, your anger, they do not vanish. They return in another form. Exhaustion, emptiness, sudden outbursts when you can no longer hold them in. Kindness, when pushed to the extreme, turns into compassion fatigue. You keep giving, but with every act of giving, you feel yourself shrink a little more. If you do not change, the consequence is not just tiredness, it is the corruption of your soul. You will slowly lose the ability to know what you want, what you like, and what you need. You will live a life defined by other people's needs, while your own remain buried. And one day, you may look around and realize you have spent your whole life tending other people's gardens while your own has been dry for years. But the mirror does not only reflect the painful truth, it also offers you a choice. You can continue to neglect yourself, waiting for the day of collapse, or you can start small. Admit that you too need to be heard, need to be loved, need to rest. Kindness is not wrong. What's wrong is when kindness only flows outward and never turns inward. If you truly dare to look into the mirror, you will see. The part of you that has been abandoned all this time is still waiting to be nourished. And the first act of kindness you need to practice is the one you give to yourself. Perhaps you've heard this phrase hundreds of times. You're too kind, but don't let people take advantage of you. Others say it is a warning, but almost no one teaches you how to be kind without erasing yourself. Slowly, you begin to believe you only have two choices: be kind and exhausted, or be tough and selfish. But that is a trap of language. Jung once said, We are bound by the language we do not see until we dare to rename it. Which means to escape the dark side of kindness, you must start with how you speak to yourself. Your old language might sound like this: if I don't help, who will? Or, if I say no, they'll be disappointed. This is the language of fear. It keeps you at the table of ashes, pushing you to give even when you are empty. Every time you repeat those lines, you reinforce the belief that your existence is tied to pleasing others. Now try shifting it. Instead of, if I don't help, what will they think of me? Try, I have the right to choose when I have enough to give. Instead of, if I say no, they'll abandon me. Try, those who truly stay will stay even when I set boundaries. New language doesn't make you less kind. It makes kindness rooted. It helps you see that real kindness is not blind sacrifice, but a conscious act. Another crucial reframing: you are not a victim of being used. You are the manager of your own energy. With just this shift in role, you move from passive to active. You are no longer only reacting to other people's needs. You begin to observe and decide, do I want to engage or not? This is the essence of boundaries, not a wall, but a way to regulate the flow of your own energy. Midpoint warning: if you don't change your language, you will keep replaying the old script. You'll live your entire life inside phrases like, I'm fine, when you're not. It's nothing, while your soul is crying out. And eventually, kindness will stop being a gift and turn into a mask that hides the truth. You never chose yourself. Jung called this journey individuation, becoming a whole being. For the kind person, individuation does not mean abandoning kindness. It means redefining it. Kindness no longer serves as a way to be accepted, but becomes the expression of someone already full inside. Then every time you give, it comes from real love, not from fear of being left. And there is a difference you will feel deeply. When kindness comes from fear, it drains you. When kindness comes from fullness, it makes you brighter without taking anything away. So the next step is not to stop being kind. It is to learn how to speak new sentences, so kindness no longer acts as a survival mask, but becomes truth flowing from your own heart. How can kindness stop being a mask and return to being a real gift? The answer lies in very small steps, ones you can begin in daily life. Step 1. Pause before you say yes. Instead of reflexively agreeing, give yourself a few breaths, a few minutes of thought. That small pause is enough for you to ask, do I really want to do this? Or am I only afraid of rejection? Step 2. Practice a gentle no. You don't have to be harsh. Just say, I'd love to help, but today I don't have the energy. This is how you send the message that your kindness has limits, and those limits do not make you less kind. Step 3. Care for yourself as part of kindness. Place nourishing activities, rest, meals, journaling, breathing, on the same level as what you do for others. Because if you don't tend the roots, your garden will dry out no matter how much you water the leaves. Step 4. Re-examine your motives. Before helping someone, ask yourself, am I doing this out of love or out of fear? The answer will show you whether your kindness is nourishing you or destroying you. These small steps will not make you selfish. On the contrary, they return your kindness to its true nature, giving without betraying yourself. If you keep living with kindness as a mask, the price you pay will not only be fatigue, it will be the slow erosion of your soul. Every time you say it's fine while you're hurting inside, you reinforce the belief that your feelings don't matter. Every time you dismiss your own needs to please someone else, you teach yourself that your worth only exists when you serve. And eventually, you may look in the mirror and no longer recognize who you are. The consequences don't stop at personal exhaustion. They create a dangerous cycle in relationships. When you are kind to the point of self-erasure, others begin to assume you have no limits. They keep asking, keep expecting, keep unconsciously draining you. And you, accustomed to that role, find it harder to break free. This is how kindness, without boundaries, turns into collusion with your own pain. But if you begin to change, the picture shifts entirely. When you dare to set boundaries, you send a crucial message. Your kindness does not come from fear, but from love. You start to experience another form of kindness, one that doesn't make you smaller, but brighter. At this point, kindness is no longer an act to be accepted. It becomes the expression of someone already full inside. Carl Jung called this process individuation, becoming a whole self. For the kind person, individuation means daring to reclaim the shadow they once denied: anger, needs, limits. When you accept that these parts exist within you, you no longer need the mask. You give from truth, not from fear. And this is the quality that restores kindness as real love. Kindness is not always good if it is fed by the shadow. True kindness appears only when you give from fullness, when you no longer betray yourself just to keep others from leaving. If you dare to step out of the cycle, kindness stops being a survival mask and becomes a tree growing from strong roots. And in that moment, you will see clearly. You do not need to disappear to be loved. Imagine stepping out of a crowded room where you've been smiling for hours. No more loud laughter, no more expectant eyes, only you and the rhythm of your own breath. For the first time in a long time, you realize you don't need to play the role of the exhausted kind one anymore. You just need to be present. And that feeling, though unfamiliar, carries a rare sense of relief. Kindness does not disappear when you set down the mask. It is still there, but now it is freed from fear. It is no longer a tool to be accepted, but becomes a truth you can offer without losing yourself. Carl Jung once said, "A person is not defined by what they hide, but by the ability to face and integrate all that they are." When you dare to face the dark side of kindness, you don't shrink your goodness. You make it real. And perhaps the next step in your journey is not about being kinder, but about daring to nurture yourself alongside the kindness you give to others. Because when the roots are cared for, the garden will remain green. This video is only a reminder to begin. If you see yourself in these words, allow yourself a pause. And if you want to continue the journey of finding balance between light and shadow, subscribe so you won't miss the next step. Because maybe, in the next video, you will find another missing piece, the piece you have left behind for far too long.